There were some notable absentees as first practice got underway at the Sakhir Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton will miss his first Formula One weekend since making his debut in 2007, the seven-time world champion's COVID diagnosis ruling him out of this weekend's race in Bahrain. George Russell got the call-up to replace his compatriot, and one might say he has big shoes to fill. But according to George, he'll have to wear a size smaller boot this weekend, his large frame proving a snug fit in the unfamiliar cockpit. But he managed to squeeze himself into the W11, even if there remained room for improved comfort.
Need to talk about my seat, struggling a bit with my shoulders. Okay, copy.
But by the end of the session, Russell was sitting a little more comfortably at the top of the standings with an impressive fastest lap of 54 seconds, 0.546. A fine first showing in the Silver Arrow. Replacing Russell at Williams was reserve driver Jack Aitken, who found himself in a spin exiting turn 2 as he reacquainted himself with the FW43 for the first time since practice for the Styrian Grand Prix. Another young racer stepping up was Pietro Fittipaldi, grandson of the great Emerson, taking Romain Grosjean's seat at Haas as the Frenchman continues to recover from the burns sustained to his hands in that horrific crash at last weekend's Bahrain Grand Prix. The young Brazilian also made tentative steps, locking up at turn 4 on one of numerous push laps, but otherwise keeping his nose clean. The Sakhir Grand Prix sees a shorter track than usual in use in Bahrain, composed of the familiar opening and ending of the lap, but with a short undulating sequence of corners connecting the two highest points of the outer track circuit. With even early reconnaissance laps coming in at under a minute, finding space on track was due to prove hard. The tricky technical section through turns 6, 7 and 8 caught several drivers out. Kevin Magnussen was one and Valtteri Bottas another, the frustrated Finn pushing hard on the soft tyres. Racing Point's Sergio Perez narrowly avoided a coming together with the McLaren of Lando Norris, with Aitken also just behind, managing to keep out of the way. With so many cars together on such a short track, drivers will have to be extra diligent in these practice sessions if they're to avoid any serious incidents. Charles Leclerc went wide at turn 5, taking a detour through the gravel trap. But it wasn't just the new section that caught the drivers out. Alex Albon had a spin at turn 2. Thankfully, flat-spotted tyres, the only damage to his Red Bull. Pierre Gasly was forced into a spot of car maintenance when his Alpha Tauri's wing mirror came loose, the Frenchman holding it down on the long journey back to the pits to prevent flying debris.
I need to box the mirrors is in the air, it's flying.
Is it the whole mirror or just the lens?
The whole thing is broken.
Okay, understood.
As the drivers continued to learn the new sequence, more and more pushed the limits of acceptability on the exit of turn 8. With no track limits transgressions being actively watched or pursued in the first session, might they become so as the weekend goes on, if this corner in particular becomes a regular point of contention. After an impressive set of laps then, it's George Russell who ends his first ever session with Mercedes top of the pile. Despite suggesting they didn't expect to be competitive this weekend, the Red Bull duo of Max Verstappen and Alex Albon were next quickest, 1 and 2 tenths off the top time respectively. Bottas was 4th fastest, ahead of the impressive-looking Alpha Tauri duo of Danny Kvyat and Pierre Gasly. Esteban Ocon was 7th for Renault on a potentially huge weekend for the French team in their fight for 3rd in the Constructors' Championship, with Sebastian Vettel 8th for Ferrari. Their teammates Daniel Ricciardo and Charles Leclerc themselves locked in a tense fight for 4th in the driver's title, followed in 9th and 10th. The Racing Points of Lance Stroll and Sergio Perez slotted into P11 and P12, with the top-placed McLaren of Carlos Sainz 13th, and all three further off the pace than they'd have been hoping for. The Alfa Romeos of Kimi Raikkonen and Antonio Giovinazzi were 14th and 15th, with Lando Norris a disappointed P16. Kevin Magnussen took P17, Nicholas Latifi P18, with their rookie teammates no doubt holding a little something back in their first serious outings, following them home. P19 for Pietro Fittipaldi and P20 for Jack Aitken.